Hi, I'm Peter Capaldi. I play the Doctor, and you're watching EMS Productions.
Hello everybody, welcome along to today's video where today I'm going to be previewing this weekend's episode of Doctor Who, Thin Ice. So now of course this episode is going to be leading directly in from the previous episode where we ended up already on the Thames, on the River Thames in 1814 in London on something called the Frost Fair. I don't actually know what that is, to be quite honest with you. Apparently it's some sort of historical event with elephants on the Thames when the Thames froze over or something, and then they had lots of shows and whatever on it. I'm sure somebody in the comments can tell me something more specific about that. I've just never really delved into that history. But it sounds like it'll be quite an interesting setting for the episode this week. Certainly from the shots in the trailer, it looks like a very impressive visuals again. After last week's fantastic visuals, it'd be brilliant to see another visually stunning sort of setting, and particularly a historical setting being really well realised, which is always great to see in Doctor Who. This script, of course, is written by Sarah Dollard, who wrote the fantastic Faith the Raven previously for Series 9, so I'm really looking forward to her second contribution to the show. She certainly proved herself straight off to be a fantastic writer for this series. So I'm hoping that she's really going to be pulling it out of the bag and to smash another fantastic story out. But of course it is quite a different situation to the episode she was previously writing in Series 9, because she basically wrote Clara's death. And it was right at the end of the series, so it was kind of a slightly more significant and a more important episode compared to what we've got this one. And it has reflected from the reviews I've read that it does feel just a bit more like a standard mid-series episode rather than something too major and important. But I don't think that should necessarily be a detractor sort of to the episode. I think it'll still be another solidly good episode. I'm not expecting it to be a classic again, to be quite honest with you. I think it'll be a good episode. I mean, I must say I personally haven't ever massively enjoyed sort of historical stories. They've just never been quite for me. I've never really had such a positive feeling towards it with any sort of historical stories. I've just always preferred stuff set in the present and stuff in the future with more sort of futuristic, high-tech kind of things rather than going back in the past. I guess maybe I've just never been too fussed about history or something like that. But yeah, to me it's just never quite enjoyed as much generally historical stories, but that's just me. And from what I've read from the pre-reviews, little previews for the episode, it certainly sounds like it's going to be a good episode for the Doctor this time round. There's going to be a lot of focus put on him and Bill understanding a bit more about the Doctor again after the last episode, asking some rather hard-hitting questions like, have you ever killed a man, as we saw from the trailer. So that'll be an interesting one, where basically the answer is yes, he has. It'll be interesting to see how he tackles that as a question and any other big sort of topics that come up. And I've also read that Peter Capaldi has a great scene towards the end, one of his classic sort of monologues that we've seen a few times from his Doctor, another one of those to round off the episode or sort of in the climax of the episode, which is always something that I love to see from Peter. It's just one of my favourite things. He pulls them off so fantastically, these brilliant monologues that so many of these writers have given for him. He just pulls it off to perfection. I think he will again this time. And of course it'll be interesting to see how Bill reacts to having her first sort of trip to the past, first historical adventure, how she gets used to sort of past history and everything, and how she fits in with all that, and I'm trying to understand sort of things from the past as well as how it all goes in the future. Just sort of covering all bases now that we get an episode to have in the past, and for her just, yeah, for her experience of that. And I think she'll do a really good job again. Particularly it'll be interesting because obviously she's black, so it'll be interesting to see how I think Stephen Moffat's mentioned there's a bit of a sort of dealing with race and class and everything in it, because of course black people were not quite so prominent in society, shall we say, back in the 1800s. But it doesn't sound like it'll go too far down the way of sort of preachy political message kind of thing. It'll just be a sort of subtle mention about it, I think, which is always the right way to go with Doctor Who. It doesn't tend to step over that mark. Occasionally it does, but most of the time it sort of finds the right balance between saying something about sort of a important issue or topic, but just not going too far and shoving it down people's throats. And certainly it sounds like we'll have the same sort of thing for this episode this weekend. This episode will again feature a lack of Nardole, which is a little bit disappointing because I was looking forward to seeing him a bit more in the series. I think he's going to be picking up his appearances a bit more later on in the series, more sort of, I think from the next episode onwards is when he's going to get a bit more involved in the series, because other than the first episode, of course, this episode and last week's episode and this episode, he's not really involved at all other than one small scene, which apparently will progress the Vault storyline a little bit more again. But I'm hoping it'll be a little bit more than just, oh, I'm protecting the Vault, the Doctor's going to be protecting the Vault. Maybe we'll get a little bit more of an insight, but we'll have to wait and see on that. And well, I think that covers most of what I know so far. In sort of plot-wise, I'm not quite sure too much what's going on, other than there seems to be some sort of giant monster lurking underneath the Thames, underneath the ice, that's kind of terrorising London and making people disappear or something around that. I don't know quite specifically. I've seen a review that compared the the monster, this sort of monster under the Thames, to the star whale from the Beast Below. So it sounds like it might be some sort of massive sort of creature underneath the Thames that's kind of almost supporting the world, or the life around London, or something like that. I don't know specifically, but that was suddenly something I read about it. And so overall, again, I'm expecting this to not be a spectacular episode, but I think it will be a very good solid episode from Sarah Doll. It'll probably be a step up from last week, but again, I think it will just have that little bit of a sense of just kind of standard one-off adventure rather than anything too sort of major and important. But I think from the next episode onwards is when it's going to pick up a little bit more with Knock Knock, which sounds like some really scary, spooky adventure set back on Earth again, or back in the present day Earth even. And that's, I think, when my sort of excitement is rising up a little bit more for that episode. And then Jamie Matthews has that episode Oxygen, then the rest of the series. It's all looking fantastic. And well, there we go, guys. That was just a little, very quick preview, just a few thoughts of what I think is going to be going down in this week's episode. I am really looking forward to it, no matter what I say. Every episode of Doctor Who I'm really looking forward to, and I'm sure this will be a really good one again. So do let me know in the comments below what you think about this episode coming up. Are you looking forward to it? How do you think it's going to go? How do you think the series has been so far? Do you think it's been a strong start to the series, or have you not been so sort of enjoying it so much? Do let me know in the comments below. And remember to like the video, guys, subscribe if you're new here, and I'll see you again very soon for another video. Goodbye.